With the lawsuits from Georgia continuing to fly from Trump's team, and a weird turn of events, Byung Pak, oddly enough, left his office as the U.S. Attorney General for Atlanta, and Trump has handpicked the replacement. And no one really knows why the resignation happened. It was just a few days before he was actually technically supposed to resign, but he did it early anyways, so Trump has appointed what is known as there's sort of a temporary attorney general. This guy is also the attorney general for southern Georgia, which I didn't even know was possible. Evidently, he is looking over both areas now. But there are sort of two different ways that you can look at this. Either Trump was just disappointed in the previous performance of the attorney general, and he just decided, you're fired, get out of here, I don't want to see you anymore. But I don't understand why he would then just temporarily replace this with this guy. It seems like he's aiming for some action to be had afterwards. And for those of you that don't know, the U.S. Attorney General is specifically, well, they're primarily involved with overseeing investigations into criminal acts or schemes over a large basis, a county-wide basis, or numerous counties depending on where you're at. So it sort of makes sense why he would appoint someone there, but it also, who knows what could come from it. Now, the official statement from Byung Pak's legal team was that he left due to unforeseen circumstances, which obviously leaves you with many questions to mind. What could possibly have come from, why would this possibly have happened? And if you will recall from the Trump phone call to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger that somehow magically got leaked, in it, Trump had referred to what we assume was this U.S. Attorney General, as, you have your never-Trumper U.S. Attorney there. That's essentially the statement that was made, and we can connect the dots here. It's not very tough, not difficult to see the connection there, that it was specifically Byung Pak that he was talking about. And, there are different plays that could come from this. As I said, with multiple investigations going down specifically within Atlanta, Fulton County, any area around there, I believe Fulton County is in Atlanta, it would make sense. This move makes sense if he's playing the long con game, but as we know, the day for certification is tomorrow, or the day that the Electoral College counts the votes is tomorrow. So this would only come into play if by chance Vice President Pence does make the move to say, look, I'm not opening the different Electoral College votes because we have 7 different states in dispute. And Pence has even stated, I'm concerned as many Americans are, millions of Americans are concerned with the election fraud that the evidence shows possibly had happened. So he's concerned with it as well, and it's quite possible that he could look into it and extend the deadline by 10 days, which would be the perfect time for this Attorney General to come into play. I'm not saying that is exactly what will happen. I would like to side with that, but I prefer not to make predictions. I prefer to see how things will play out first. They also say the Justice Department said the Southern District of Georgia's U.S. Attorney Bobby Christine, who is also a Trump appointee and has been on the job since 2017, would take over as acting head in Atlanta, taking on both roles. Like I said, I didn't even know it was a possibility to take on both roles at once. Evidently, he is the Southern District U.S. Attorney, and now Atlanta too. I don't know. A lot of weird things happening there. But another thing that the U.S. Attorney does is that they communicate with the Secretary of State and the governor to sort of, as I said, oversee criminal investigations in the wide-scale crimes. And they're investigating specifically that. So I would imagine that the previous Attorney General was sort of trapped between a rock and a hard place. He had Trump pressuring him on one side, saying, look, there is election fraud. You can see it. The State Farm Arena video that was released where Giuliani says that they had specifically slow-moed it and counted how many ballots were put through. Some of them put through 3 times. There were at least 18,000 that they counted specifically after watching over that entire tape in slow-mo. So clearly there is evidential fraud, to say the least. And this could give this new Attorney General a chance to make a play. when you have the Secretary of State on the other end, Trump being, I guess, we'll call him the hard place. Trump is the hard place. And Secretary of State Raffensperger, so fittingly a rock. Him specifically coming out and saying, no, don't believe these conspiracy theory claims. Here is our evidence that we will provide to you as we have done our own research, and you can't get our information that we have provided. You can't look into it, but here's what we have found. Not really, it doesn't really make much sense, but it would make sense why Byung Pak would be like, I don't want any part of this anymore. I'm leaving. Unforeseen circumstances, I'm gone. And for those of you who may think, man, Admiral, he's kind of crazy here. He's talking a lot of conspiratorial nonsense. Raffensperger is one of the most trusted and respected names in Secretary of Stateism. Well, you're wrong. He is probably the biggest hypocrite, rhino, whatever you want to call him, in the business. And I have the receipts to back it up. So here we have the full transcript here. And the infamous transcript from the Trump phone call where Trump will be locked up for it, even though there is not a single shred of anything to be found in here that would be considered illegal. I don't even know where that comes from. Obviously, that's the two brain cells left in the Democrats' brains clicking together. But here we have the full transcript, and this is the Secretary of State's attorney, I believe, speaking right here. So he says, oh, my bad, I was on the wrong part. But this is Trump's attorney here. He says, the number who have registered out of state after they moved from Georgia, and so they had a date when they moved from Georgia, they registered to vote out of state, and then it's like 4,500. I don't have that number right in front of me. A little back and forth, and then Secretary of State Raffensperger's attorney says, we've been going through each of those as well, and those numbers that we got that Miss Mitchell was just saying, they're not accurate. Everyone we've been through are people that lived in Georgia, moved to a different state, but then moved back to Georgia legitimately. That is something that happens all the time. 4,500 people deciding, I'm going to get out of Georgia. They move out for a month or two, and then they're like, man, I miss Georgia. That was just my favorite place to be. I love Raffensperger. I love Brian Kemp, so I'm going back. I'm sure that happens a lot, as they claim here. But what is so interesting to this is that if we look at the Secretary of State website, could you imagine something that Raffensperger would be complaining about? Why, it is, of course, a lawsuit of his. Well, not his. It was one that he was really rooting for, that was thrown out on standing in court about the exact same thing. 4,500 people, or 4,033 people, who moved from Georgia and still were registered to vote. That is such a weird coincidence. I wonder how Raffensperger did not see that in all that in-depth research he was talking about earlier. That is so crazy. This guy is the biggest scumbag you can imagine. I hate people like this. I really hate them. And you can even see with the way that he... Just listen to this statement made by him here. This ruling is a direct attack on rule of law in Georgia and the integrity of elections in this state, and I will not stand for it. Without even hearing from Muskogee County, a President Obama-appointed judge has decided to overturn the express will of Georgia law and the county elections of officers around the state who follow it. Man, he is so dumb. He either is the dumbest person of all time, or he thinks you are. And I'm telling you, he's pretty dumb. How can he even sit there in good conscience and say something like that when this whole time Trump has been railing on the exact same point, and he's 0 and 11, a big Democratic talking point. He's 0 and 11 in Georgia. Every single case thrown out on standing just like this one. Magically, they don't ever get the time of day in court. They'll have all the facts presented. Whatever you want, you name it. It'll be right there, and it gets thrown out on standing. I wonder if it's because they're Obama-appointed judge in the exact same fashion. But no, it only matters if it's something that affects the Senate runoff, because this guy was looking for the opportunity to just stab Trump in the back. Metaphorically, of course. Figuratively. And continue on with his day. He was willing to sell out whoever he needed to get that money in his pocket and the power and retain his power, essentially. It blows my mind. And they even state that the complaint was filed a national change of address notice with the United States Postal Service, which is essentially the exact same way that Trump's legal team had found those people originally. They used the same method. This was a method that was, I believe, devised by the person in Texas. True the Vote, I believe, is the name of the organization that started from there. Something like that. I would double check that. The same exact method. And Raffensperger sits here and lies right to your face and acts like, no, we didn't find anyone who had changed addresses. But at the same time, can you believe she threw out this lawsuit? This guy is nuts. He's a loon, man. I don't even know how he ended up in any kind of power. And what's funny enough, this is his website. Why do they have an election fact-checking whole category on this website? This safe and fair, honest election. And he has a fact-checking section on his website. Who does that? He literally is becoming like the media. And in these sections, they play out the same way as the media. He tries to just smear the person that is against him. He says, Georgia Judge Leslie Abrams Gardner of the Middle District of Georgia, sister of failed gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. So failed gubernatorial, that's not as bad of one as I've seen. If you've seen some of the ones he's talked about, I mean, you have the tech guy who said that he was into the polling systems. He hacked into the polling systems. They went through 3 paragraphs explaining how this guy was a failed tech inventor and how he was a failed this and that. It is fact-checking central right here on his website. That should be enough in your mind to correlate. I don't think other states have a fact-checking election section on their Secretary of State website. I didn't see Ohio had one. This is insane. He literally is part of the big tech media conglomerate sitting in the back fact-checking each other. You can do the correlation with that. And it's right there in front of people's eyes. I'm sure plenty of people don't even know about this. This same statement that he is trying to argue was so necessary for people to see and needed to see the time of day in court is exactly what he just the other day stated. No, there's no evidence of that. This lawsuit here happened before this transcript was put out, before that phone call even happened. So you're going to come to me and tell me that you're disappointed that this case was thrown out with these 4,033 people and 152 registered voters respectively, and they filed a change of address, and yet you say to Trump, no, none of that happened. Everyone in this state is legal. These people are just the most disgusting disgraces in politics that you will find. And people really do need to see this because, like I said, it's atrocious. It is an atrocity that he has any sort of power at all. He shouldn't have the power to flush his own toilet. He should not have the power to do anything at all. He is probably not even capable of sweeping up with a broom. He'd probably break it in half. It makes no sense. But I just had to point that out there just to let you guys know once more. Raffensperger, Rhinosberger, same thing. He is within the big tech elitist. They love to look down on us smaller people, the rabble. But that'll be it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.